Hi, it's Roger again. This is the second of a couple of episodes that we taped with our good friend Jon Fisher. He is just the master of hospitality. He's taught Jim and I so much about going above and beyond, exceeding expectations, and making events and experiences for your members exceptional. Why can't everything be exceptional? If you've got some feedback on this episode, please share it with us at hello@engagedclub.com. We love to hear from you. Now enjoy this episode.
It's time for the Engaged Club, the podcast for club managers and operators that strive to create loyal and connected members, guests, and customers. Here are the two guys with the club management and digital marketing advice you need to realize your club's potential. Jim Hope and Roger Kincaid.
Welcome back for the second Jon Fisher episode in the Engaged Club podcast. Johnny, in the last podcast, you talked about the difference between hospitality and service. And the analogy that you used, which I thought was great, was service is the delivery of a product. It's the opening of a bottle of a wine and pouring it into a glass. Where hospitality described that as taking the cork out, but knowing the producer, maybe even telling a little bit about their family and the region where it's grown, so you can have a story to tell about that wine. You also touched base on an outline of what your new member orientation had become at Willow Park. Can we dive into that a little bit more about how you transformed events from the mundane to the extraordinary? And by the way, just for the listeners, there is nobody, because I've experienced them, who does it better than Jon Fisher. So would you be able to describe to us what a mundane event used to look like at your club, what it looked like when it was extraordinary, and what was that aha moment that you had to take it from mundane to extraordinary?
I'm going to talk about the event that was when I arrived. So it's the jazz quartet, the violinist, and there is a place for the jazz quartet and the violinist. So the reality is that mundane event that you're talking about, it's not mundane. It has its place. And black tie and now we see denim in clubs. I mean, clubs are changing, and we're evolving to create attractions for the diverse expectations and needs for members. So, but what ended up happening is that where I would have had that violinist, now I've got this 6'2" strapping guitar player who's got tattoos on his arms in a formal environment, and he's singing beautiful music because he has a passion for it, and he just fits the environment more. It might be a Friday night on the patio. It might be a president manager's event that we hosted for Alberta. So all of the private clubs in Alberta with presidents and managers, and those would have been, the Calgary Petroleum Club, the Glencoe Club, clubs that aren't golf clubs. So we had a good field, probably, 100 people in this event. And so you arrive, and we had a pirate, and we had Crystal receiving you at the front gates, okay? And it was Captain...
I'm just sorry. I just was not expecting. And so and there was a beat there where I did not think you were going to say a pirate.
Yeah. What's his name? Jack
Sparrow. Yeah.
Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
So we had this guy that did Jack Sparrow better than Jack Sparrow, okay? And so you arrived, and this pirate pulled out his sword and complained about not being allowed on the property and that he was having to break in. And Crystal showed up at the window of your car and said, "Welcome to Willow Park," and handed you the tea gift and told you what hole you're starting on, and kind of got Captain Jack out of the way, and then you parked your car and you went in, and you were told that, there was a little brunch in the dining room, and so you were all made to feel welcome, and you had your gift already, and it's in your car, and that's taken care of. And now you're on the golf course, and you're in a bunker, and this turf maintenance staff member shows up in a Gator, drives up, squeals his tires. You're taking a shot in the bunker, and he pulls out a weed whacker, and he's weed whacking around you, okay? And you're going, what is this? You know what I mean? And all the time he's mumbling about management and how they're working too much overtime and blah, blah, blah. So, and then as that day goes on, I myself go by the pro shop, and the associate pro says to me, "John, there's a turf guy out there who's out of control, and one of the presidents has said his ass needs to be out of here. That guy needs to be fired." And so I kind of let the associate pro in on the fact that I've set this guy up. This is Steve, the irrigation guy. And I've told him to just go around the golf course and disrupt things. Okay. So, and Steve happens to be an entertainer and a singer, etc. So now the next thing is you're on the 15th tee and a young lady in a black dress comes out of the home and waves you into the home. And now you're looking at each other and you go, okay. So you go over and you're now sitting at the island and there's a chef cooking up pasta and you're taken down into this wine storage space that is so extraordinary that you think there's friars walking out. You can see friars, the image of friars walking out of there as you're walking into the wine.
And this is a member's home, right?
This is a member's home.
This has opened his house to a bunch of strangers because he trusts and loves you and knows what's going to happen.
100%, and then you arrive on the 16th green and you're going over the bridge and there's a couple of kids there and they say, hey, come with us. And they take you over to the backyard of a home and you're in the garage and you're in a party, with, and there's a couple of bartenders that I borrowed from a local bar because they can toss bottles and throw them behind their back. And there you are. And the group ahead of you is in there and up goes the garage door. And there's a vocalist and a piano player and they're singing into the garage and down goes the door. And so now we're at dinner. Everybody's in black tie. And there were a couple other things that happened on the golf course. But we're at dinner and it's black tie. And Wesley Chu, a 6-year-old concert pianist, is playing his piano. And he just announces to the group, I'm going to play you my first concerto that I've written. 6 years old. So he starts to play and the door to the dining room is open. All of a sudden, up comes Steve and he's got his weed whacker again. He starts weed whacking the shrubs. And Jim, you might have been the vice president at the time, but he might have been the president. But his table is right by that open door and he runs out and he goes, stop, this kid is playing the piano, and I intercept, I think his name was Bruce Foster.
Correct.
I'll never forget Bruce. And so I say, Bruce, go back inside. I'll handle this, And so what I do is I look animated and I yell to Steve. But nobody can hear, Steve, you're 10 minutes early. So anyway, Wesley finishes, standing ovation for his music. Wesley leaves and up pulls Steve again. And he comes in and he fires up his weed whacker in the dining room in this black tie event. And he goes, where's Cole? You got me fired. And Cole was the president of the club that had gone into the pro shop to complain about this guy because what had happened to Cole was that he was putting and Steve pulls up and he moves the golf hole, okay? So that he actually moves the hole another 30 feet away from Cole's ball, and Cole's not happy. So, but anyway, so Steve comes in, fires up the weed whacker, calls for Cole. Cole stands up and he goes, your ass should be out of here, okay? You should be fired. And Steve goes, okay. And he takes off his coveralls. He goes up to the podium and he pulls out his guitar and he starts playing beautiful music. And he goes, hi, my name's Steve. I'm the irrigation guy. I was brought here to disrupt you. And so that's a kitchen of the mind, and this is where I got, it was Mike Vance, Disney. Mike was responsible for people and ideas at Disney way back in the beginning with Walt and Roy Disney and at Disneyland. And he transformed how I saw space. He turned my golf course into a Disney movie is what he did.
Wow.
And I used to be the guy that would have, the buffet and the jazz band and, the violinist. And I still have those, but this is what I have now.
How do you pitch that idea? The story that you just told, everybody would have loved to have participated in that event. Jim, were you at that event?
I was there. This is real. Every single thing John said did happen. And it started for me because I've known John and known how he does events, was pulling in the parking lot and seeing Jack Sparrow and the girl, and you're getting your tea gift in the car. You also, I think, gave us a key to the locker at the same time. So instead of going to your standard registration table and they give you the key to the locker and your scorecard, all of that was handed to you while you're sitting in the front seat of your car, and someone was taking the clubs out of the back. And I said to my president, I said, this is going to be a special day because Jon Fisher is doing this.
There's no question. And then to hear about the turmoil that you created and the great experience that you created all along the way, it seems to me like whiteboarding that in the boardroom and getting everyone else to buy into the risk would be the art of hospitality.
Well, as a leader in a club, your first responsibility is to build that trust. And so you've got the trust because you're not going to ask permission to do that because you're not going to get it.
Right.
The reality is that Willow Park, very private club, members and guests only, no outside tournaments at the time. And the owner, the president of the club that day said to me, John, why was I in somebody's garage eating lunch? And Mr. Lave, I said, did you enjoy it? Well, yeah. and they were proud that this was their club.
I just like to leave it with this note, on this note that, you know, I had the pleasure of stealing every one of John's idea and implementing it at my last two clubs. And where I currently am, we're going to have, we call the Expect the Unexpected this summer. And for the skeptics that are listening to this going, this would never work at my club or my staff would never buy into it, I can tell you that when I introduced this concept at my very first club, which would have been 10 or 15 years ago after seeing John do it for a number of years, and when I presented the ideas of what we could do with a level of enthusiasm that they may not have seen before, I had 100% buy-in from all departments in my club. And Turf Care were the ones who embraced it the most, who were the ones I thought wouldn't embrace it at all. So you might be surprised what happens when you present this at your club to your team and how engaged they become in being part of this, the program and the experience they're going to create.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found that valuable or that story outlandish and incredible, please share it with your friends in the club business or even members of your team as well who could get some value out of this episode. You can get in touch with this podcast at engagedclub.com, and you can email us hello@engagedclub.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.